Welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields in academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Filmmaker Lisa Hurwitz is today's guest. Lisa talks about her passion for history as she discusses her film, The Automat movie. Take a trip down memory lane as we learn about the Horn and Heart Art Automat movie through the eyes of Lisa Hurwitz.
Hello and welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. We have an incredible guest today. Filmmaker Lisa Hurwitz is the creative mind behind the Automat movie, which is getting rave reviews. Let's bring her on. Lisa Hurwitz, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Marc.
So good to see you. And I have to ask, I know your tremendous interest in filmmaking, but more specifically, what made you interested into the documentary genre? A lot of people don't go that route.
I think it's a very accessible, entry point. And I think that there's a lot of female documentary filmmakers in particular. It's just something very flexible. You can, mold it around your schedule, do it in your spare time. I think if you're working with actors, there's a lot more constraints, but if you're doing a doc and a lot of, female filmmakers, they're shooting their own stuff, even that gives you a lot of flexibility really on your schedule.
Yeah. So look, if it fits into your schedule, that's excellent too, but it's just such an interesting genre to me because I actually have a documentary I did with a partner of mine on Tubi TV. And it's just such a different thing. And when I started to watch other documentaries, I just really liked that vibe. So first you have the documentary, which is not a genre everybody picks, so to speak, but you do it at your young age about the Automat. And so many things I've read about you and seen, and I know about the movie, hits home to me. Because my grandfather was back in 50s and 60s, a rather famous composer in LA. He did shows that your parents will know. Your father will definitely know the Loretta Young Show and One Step Beyond. And he wrote music years and years ago. He was very big in the Yiddish theater. And I only met him twice. And when he came into New York City, I want to say 48 years ago, that's when I met him for the first time. And lo and behold, where did we go for lunch? We went to the Automat and it opened up and I'm in with this guy from Hollywood who I met for the first time. And I walk in and it's just Disney with food. That's all I saw. I mean, my ADHD brain was like, where am I eating first? What is this? You open it up, you grab it. Why can't I grab 9? And the whole thing. So I just thought it was unbelievable. But that's as a 12-year-old and it's so nostalgic. You are fascinated with Horn and Heart, it's Automat. And what made of all the different things you could talk about and all the different documentaries you could have chosen? Why that?
At the time, I was eating in my school cafeteria a lot and I really loved it. I was a 35 millimeter projectionist at a theater that I loved. So it really combined my two interests. And as we, discussed earlier, making a documentary film can be kind of flexible. It definitely can be low budget. I also, kind of in retrospect, say that it's also much more forgiving than I think narrative can be. Documentary is really much more about the merit than all the bells and whistles. Of course, you get critiqued for, showmanship as well. But, at the end of the day, it's really about, documenting and, telling a compelling story by, whatever means you have to tell them. So it just really ended up being a perfect fit for me. And it was something that I pursued over the course of many years in my spare time.
So I have to be honest that I find your answers so authentic and so honest. When does a young woman talk about it? Combined my two greatest things: eating lunch in the school cafeteria. I mean, if I had a list of answers that Lisa would not give, that would be it. So I just think it's so honest because, hey, not that the food when I went to SUNY Albany, it was horrible, but I just like the vibe of just eating whatever you could and getting the extras, and what person doesn't like that? So I'm with you. And I think that's so honest, and it really fit in to who you are. But you're talking about now a movie where someone like you is working with, interviewing, and meeting, for lack of a better term, legends, icons, titans in the industry. Mel Brooks, Carl Reiner, Elliot Gould, the list goes on and on, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So let's talk about learning. What did you learn as you were making the film?
I mean, so much. And I continue because we're still kind of making it. Now we're, putting it out into the world. So, and I love to learn. So it really was and I like to learn kind of at my own pace. I had great grades, but it didn't come so easily to me. I had to really work hard in school. I'm not much of an exam girl. So it was really the perfect way for me to learn by doing. But I'd say some of the most important things I learned were really that, anything is possible, and, to not preclude something from happening, give it a shot. And, if you get a no, try again. And that was definitely the case with, the Automat. I got so many no's along the way. And, I got no's from almost every grant that I applied for. I got no's from a lot of different, celebrities I reached out to. And in fact, at first, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Colin Powell, they both said no the first time I asked. I went back a second time and I asked. And then let's see, I'd say, if you believe it can kind of be true. And if you kind of act the part, people will believe you. And I sort of managed to convince a lot of people to, get behind this and to trust me, despite my lack of experience, but, my passion. I think that, my passion for this project, it kind of hooked a lot of people, and they said it was infectious, and it was really genuinely me. And I think that coming at this project with like a big heart, and, I really was trying to do something special. I really was trying to honor everybody involved and, present everybody in the best light possible. At this point, I have a whole lot of happy, teammates who are just thrilled with even people, because, the reality is there's a lot of talented people with a lot more experience than me that were, working on this project. So, people would challenge me along the way, and I would have to push back, and, but in the end, like, everybody is kind of like, oh my gosh, like nobody thought that we'd be here and that we'd end up with a film like this, that's having a release like this. And independently, I'm trying to think if there's definitely lots of little things. Like, I wish there were so many interviews that we didn't film, because there was just so much when, we didn't plan necessarily the way that a normal like film production would plan. This film took, we filmed over the course of so many years, and I was sort of just, learning as I was going, and I would interview anyone who would talk to me. But, that costs money, and that costs time. And then it's, it's awkward when you have to tell people, they're not in the film. And, I think that, like, I would have liked to have an art director in retrospect, and somebody who we could have had the film be a little more stylized. a little more polished. And that's definitely going to be a priority for me for, future films. But for the most part, I'm just so happy, content with everything that happened. Really, I'm a tough critic on myself, and I'm so happy with the film, and I'm happy that we took our time and that we released it. There was a lot of pressure on me to put the film out during COVID, and I earlier on during COVID, because it was done, and I didn't want to do that. And sometimes you have to ignore what people that are have much more experience than me. They're not always right. So that's definitely been a lesson too, is to go with my instincts. Not always, but because I'm not always right, but sometimes you just have an instinct. So listen. When you've got one of those instincts, listen to it.
Well, I really have to unpack that answer a bit, because there's so many golden nuggets in there. First of all, very quickly, my background, I was a teacher for over 30 years. So, education is very near and dear to my heart. And I heard you say, you got great grades, but it didn't come easy to you. So none of this is easy. Meeting these icons is not easy. It's not all glamour and glitz all the time. The fact that, there were people who you should pay homage and or respect to because of their years and experience. You went with your gut and you had faith in you. And that's a message I really want the viewers to take to heart. That should resonate with so many people. And you say that you're still learning, and you talk about already what's coming next and things of that nature. So people often know the glory, but not the story. So what struggles did you experience when making this film? What happened during the pandemic, and what happened, budget-wise and problems? And did you ever give up? Did you ever say, this is a wonderful thing, but there's so much stress involved. So what things really presented a roadblock to you? And, did you go in the front door? Did you go in the back door? Did you have to break a window? What were the struggles like?
Definitely not getting grants was a struggle. We were able to, I wouldn't say that the funding was the hardest part about all this. And, I'm a very, I was resourceful. I went to everyone I knew who had money. I put in my own money. We did a big Kickstarter that was really successful. And it's a low budget documentary. So, we managed financially. It was a struggle, I'd say, putting together the team. I had to wait for, years to work with the editors that I wanted to work with, because I had my mind set on these really, accomplished editors who had wait lists. And that the way that I chose my editors was that I went after the editors who cut films that I loved. And I had this crazy idea that I wanted to make one of the greatest documentary films about New York. And so I looked at great documentary films about New York. And so that's how I really ended up really pursuing my editors. But there was a long wait, and it slowed us down. Also, I had people on my team, like I discussed before, who were much older and more experienced than I was. And so that definitely, learning how to hold my ground and how to kind of, compromise. And because I think it's not just in, film, but in all sorts of aspects of work now. You have, older, more experienced workers being, directed by younger people. So that was definitely something to, get more comfortable in. Another challenge along the way was I did our own archival clearances. Normally a documentary like this would have somebody who's a very experienced archival researcher, archival supervisor, and I had to learn how to do that. I sort of had a natural knack for doing it. I really loved doing it. That's part of what made, I'd say this film so like joyful for me, is like the joy in discovering, unearthing all this incredible archival. But I'm not the most organized person. And when you're dealing with, like thousands of individual elements that you have to track and you have to clear and then pay for and negotiate, that was a huge undertaking for me. And it was really frustrating. Eventually, I did it, but it was not easy. And I also was sort of learning how to negotiate at that. That was really the first. I'm much more confident negotiating now, but at first I felt so uncomfortable doing it. And that was really like the first time in my life that I feel like it was a lot of negotiating, because it was a lot of archival elements. Another challenge was we didn't get a big distribution deal presented to us, even after premiering at one of the top film festivals in the whole world. We ended up, instead of taking a bad offer, because, we did have a couple of bad offers, instead what we did was we decided to make a bunch of ancillary deals to piece it together. So instead of like one company, one distributor owning the whole film, I own the film, and I've licensed it to a bunch of different companies for different things. And in the end, it's possible that worked out even better, because I've been able to keep control over everything, and everything's up to Lisa standards for the release of the film. The Automat kind of it's really been getting the royal release treatment. I'm so kind of mindful about everything and the bigger picture for the film. And so that's been great.
That's just the whole learning process, the flying. And let me tell you something, for someone to have the confidence to say, hey, you got to work around my schedule. And yes, time was on your side because you were piecemealing it, but the guts it took to say, I'm going to own it and just license it out here and there is unbelievable. And at the top, we're coming to the last minute or two, but at the top of the show, you said, when I do my next films and I've learned and I'm going to apply this and that. So what is next for Lisa Hurwitz?
Well, Lisa Hurwitz is currently the distributor of the Automat. So I'm working really hard right now to we're on video on demand. We're coming out on DVD on September 20th. We actually will become available on, can't tell you now, but we do have some the film's going to become much more widely available in a few months. Mm-hmm. And, I'm in the middle of submitting for all the different award shows. I've brought on an awards publicist. So we're going to be working hard on, a lot of for-your consideration type things. But I'm also in development on a romantic comedy that I co-wrote. And it's very exciting, a whole lot of new learning. And, I'm finding though that I do think that the Automat always was a door opener for the, people. You tell people, oh, I'm making a film about H&H and, that they want to help you. But I'm headed to LA tomorrow. I grew up in LA, but while I'm there, I'm having meetings with, some very, people are very generous, to share information with me and to help me out and introduce me to people. So, the Automat, it's a really excellent calling card.
Absolutely. And LA is the spot. I just did a couple of lessons on anti-bullying and conflict resolution in LA just 3 weeks ago. And I'm doing via Zoom actually this Friday, the closing leadership seminar on that. And LA has that amazing vibe. And when you talk about archives, it's so interesting to me because on a much smaller scale, when I went to LA over 30 years ago, I went to the UCLA library on campus because my grandfather donated sheet music to UCLA. So when I went downstairs and came up and opened the box and took out some of his music, when you talk about unearthing these archives, oh my God, the feeling, I can only imagine the treasures that you've enjoyed and seen. So I think that's just incredible. I wish you much luck in the coming months and of course the coming years with new things you're going to do. So Lisa Hurwitz, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your passion, not just for the Automat, but for a piece of history and bringing us the Automat movie. And thank you so much. We're honored to have you here. To the viewers, thanks for watching us and we'll see you next time. Lisa, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. To contact Marc, email him at info@lifestorieswithmarchoberman.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman.